It was a freezing night in a small town 20 years ago when Officer David Johnson answered a call that would change his life forever. The call came from an abandoned house on the outskirts of town. A neighbor had reported crying, but nothing could have prepared David for what he found. Inside, huddled together on the cold, dusty floor, were 7 tiny, malnourished babies, all under the age of 2. They were scared, shivering, and completely alone. Their mother had vanished, leaving no note, no explanation, and no intention of returning. David, a single man with no children of his own, couldn't stop thinking about them. Who would take care of them? Who would give them the love they deserved? That night, as he tucked each baby into blankets at the hospital, a thought crossed his mind. What if he could give them the family they'd been robbed of? Against all odds, David made the life-altering decision to adopt all 7 children. Friends called him crazy, others called him a hero, but David just saw it as doing what was right. Raising one child is no small task, let alone 7, especially when they face challenges beyond the usual. From the start, the odds seemed stacked against them, but David was relentless. He worked long hours at the police department, often skipping meals so his kids could have enough. He became a father, a mother, a cheerleader, and a role model, teaching them the values of kindness, hard work, and perseverance. The community watched in awe as David poured his entire being into giving those children the love they had been denied. Fast forward 20 years, and David is no longer the man carrying the weight of 7 young lives alone. Today, his story takes an astonishing turn. What these 7 children, now adults, did to repay the man who gave them everything will leave you speechless. It's a story of love, gratitude, and an act so powerful, it's hard to believe it's real. Stay with us as we reveal how this once struggling family came full circle, proving that love truly conquers all. You don't want to miss this. David's life over the past 2 decades had been anything but easy. He didn't just take on the role of a parent, he became a fighter. The 7 children, all siblings, had come from a deeply troubled background. Many of them struggled with health issues early on due to neglect, and the emotional scars of abandonment didn't just fade overnight. There were sleepless nights, hospital visits, and moments when the weight of it all felt unbearable. But through every tear and every challenge, David reminded himself why he had made this choice. These children weren't just his responsibility, they were his family. Each child had their own personality, their own challenges, and their own dreams. There was Maya, the eldest, who quickly became a caretaker herself, helping David with the younger kids. Then there was Jamal, quiet and introspective, who had a natural talent for drawing. Twins Jordan and Jasmine were inseparable, always causing mischief but lighting up the house with their laughter. Malik, the middle child, loved science and dreamed of being an engineer. Kendra, the shyest of them all, found her voice through music. And finally, little Nia, the baby of the family, who looked up to her siblings like they were her superheroes. David worked tirelessly to support them. He often picked up extra shifts, missing out on sleep and his own personal life to ensure they had food on the table and clothes for school. He never asked for help, never complained, and never regretted his decision. Still, there were times when he wondered if he was doing enough. Would they grow up to be okay? Would they truly understand how much he loved them? As the kids grew older, they began to see just how much David had sacrificed for them. The stories of him skipping meals or going without new clothes so they could have what they needed became clear in hindsight. But while David's struggles were evident, there was something he never talked about. He never mentioned his own dreams, his own desires, or the pain he carried in silence. He focused entirely on the kids, and in doing so, became their world. As the big day drew closer, the siblings worked harder than ever to finalize their plan. They'd chosen a significant date, David's birthday. It wasn't just about celebrating his life, but honoring everything he had done to give them theirs. They wanted this to be a day he'd never forget, but the pressure to make it perfect began to weigh on them. Late-night calls and group meetings became their routine, with emotions running high as they juggled their busy lives and this secret mission. Every detail mattered, and they wanted David to feel the depth of their gratitude in a way words never could. Maya, as the eldest, carried the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She coordinated everyone's contributions, constantly checking and rechecking every part of the plan. "This has to be flawless," she reminded her siblings. Jamal, with his artistic touch, worked on a heartfelt visual piece that he hoped would capture the essence of their family's journey, a timeline of their lives with David, filled with pictures, drawings, and moments that told their story. Jasmine and Malik were in charge of logistics, making sure everything stayed on schedule. Even the quieter siblings, like Kendra and Nia, stepped out of their comfort zones to ensure no detail was overlooked. But as the day approached, things didn't go as smoothly as they hoped. A delay in one key element of their plan sent everyone scrambling. Jordan, already feeling the pressure, grew frustrated, snapping during a late-night call. "If this doesn't work, it'll ruin everything," he exclaimed. The tension rippled through the group, but Maya quickly stepped in to calm everyone down. "This isn't about perfection," she reminded them. "It's about showing Dad how much we love him. He'll see that no matter what." Meanwhile, David remained oblivious. On his birthday morning, he woke up like any other day, heading to the kitchen for his usual cup of coffee. He didn't notice the unusual quiet around the house or the way his children had been acting a little strange over the past week. To him, it seemed like just another busy day. As he sat at the table, sipping his coffee, the doorbell rang. He wasn't expecting anyone, and when he opened the door, what he saw left him momentarily stunned. Outside stood all 7 of his children, dressed sharply, each holding something in their hands. They greeted him with bright smiles, but there was something in their eyes, nervous excitement, maybe even a hint of tears. David looked at them, confused but curious, as they asked him to follow them outside. The air was thick with anticipation, and David could feel his heart pounding, though he didn't know why. Something big was about to happen, and he had no idea what it could be. David stepped outside, confused but smiling as he followed his children to the driveway. The morning air was crisp, and a quiet stillness hung around them, broken only by the sound of their footsteps. He noticed they had set up something near the edge of the yard, a large white curtain strung up between 2 poles, fluttering slightly in the breeze. Behind it, he could hear hushed whispers and the rustling of movement, but he couldn't make out what was going on. His curiosity deepened, and for the first time, he started to feel a sense of unease mingled with excitement. "What are you all up to?" he asked, glancing at their faces, but none of them answered. Instead, they shared a knowing look and urged him to wait. Jamal stepped forward first, holding what looked like a small box wrapped in brown paper. His hands trembled slightly as he handed it to David. "Before we show you everything, open this," Jamal said softly. David carefully tore the wrapping, revealing a leather-bound photo album. On the cover, embossed in gold letters, were the words, "The family you built." David opened it, and as he turned the pages, his breath caught in his throat. It was filled with pictures and mementos spanning 2 decades. Hospital visits, birthdays, school plays, quiet family dinners. There were even moments he didn't realize had been captured. Him tucking Nia into bed when she was little, helping Malik fix a bike, teaching Jasmine how to drive. Each page told the story of their lives together, stitched together with love and sacrifice. As David flipped through the album, he felt tears welling up. "I don't even remember some of these moments," he said, his voice breaking. "How did you?" But before he could finish, Maya stepped forward and gently took his arm. "Dad, this isn't all. We have something more to show you." She led him toward the curtain, the other siblings following closely behind. David's heart raced as he approached. His mind swirled with possibilities, but nothing could have prepared him for what came next. Maya nodded to Jordan, who pulled the curtain aside with a dramatic sweep. David's eyes widened as he stared at what was in front of him. There, parked in the driveway, was an RV, shiny, brand new, and fully equipped. A banner hung across its side that read, "For the adventures you deserve." David was stunned into silence, his mind reeling. You did this for me?" he stammered. But before he could process the gift, Jamal cleared his throat. "There's more," he said hesitantly. The siblings exchanged uneasy glances, and Maya stepped forward again, her expression serious now. "Dad, we've been keeping something else from you," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "It's time you knew." David froze, his heart sinking. The joy of the moment was suddenly tinged with apprehension. "What do you mean?" he asked cautiously. The siblings hesitated, as though they weren't sure how to say what needed to be said. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a surprise. It was something deeper, something they had been holding back for a long time. David braced himself, sensing that the day was about to take an unexpected turn, one that could change everything he thought he knew. David stood frozen, the excitement of the RV gift now overshadowed by the seriousness in Maya's voice. The siblings exchanged nervous glances, and it was clear that whatever they were about to share wasn't part of the original plan. Maya took a deep breath and stepped closer to her father, her eyes glistening with tears. "Dad," she began softly, "we've been working on this surprise for years because we wanted to honor you, to thank you for everything you've done for us. But there's something else we've been keeping from you, something we've all been carrying for a long time." David's heart pounded in his chest. He didn't know what to expect, but the look on Maya's face told him it was something important. "What is it?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with concern. Maya hesitated, glancing at her siblings for support, and then spoke. "Dad, after everything you've sacrificed for us, we realize there's one thing we've never truly done. We've never let you know how much you've inspired us, not just with words, but through action." Before David could ask what she meant, Maddox stepped forward, holding an envelope. He handed it to David, who opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a letter, neatly folded. As David unfolded it, he saw the header at the top. Asterisk, "The Johnson Family Scholarship Foundation asterisk." His eyes widened as he read the details. Together, his children had pooled their resources to create a scholarship fund in his name, aimed at supporting children in foster care and adoption, giving them the opportunities he had fought so hard to give his own family. David looked up, stunned. You did this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jamal nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Dad, we wanted your legacy to go beyond us. You didn't just save us. You taught us the power of love, sacrifice, and second chances. We wanted to make sure other kids like us get the same chance you gave us." David was overwhelmed, his emotions threatening to spill over. But just as he was about to respond, Nia stepped forward, holding something behind her back. "There's one more thing, Dad," she said quietly. She handed him a small box. David opened it and found a set of keys. Confused, he looked at his children. "The RV already has keys," he said, his voice cracking. But Nia shook her head. "Not for the RV, Dad. These are for your new home." David's eyes widened as he realized what they were saying. The siblings had not only bought him the RV, but had also pooled their savings to pay off the family home. David's home was now officially his. No mortgage, no stress, just a place where he could finally relax after years of sacrifice. Tears streamed down David's face as he pulled all 7 of his children into a tight embrace. He couldn't find the words to express how he felt. Everything he had done, every sleepless night, every missed opportunity, had led to this moment. His children had taken the love he had given them and multiplied it, spreading it far beyond their family. But then, just as they stood there together, Jordan spoke up, his voice tinged with emotion. "There's something else we need to tell you, Dad," he said. "This isn't just a thank you. It's a beginning. We want you to take that RV and finally see the world, something you've never done for yourself. And don't worry about us. We'll be right here, carrying your legacy forward." In that moment, David realized his children hadn't just repaid him. They had honored him in a way he never expected. It wasn't just about gifts or surprises. It was about the love they had built together, a love that would live on in the lives of countless others. And as David stood there, surrounded by the family he had fought so hard for, he knew one thing for sure: this was the greatest adventure of all. David stood there, holding the keys, surrounded by the 7 people who meant more to him than anything else in the world. The weight of their gifts, their love, and their sacrifice hit him all at once. He looked at each of his children, his heart full of pride and gratitude. "You didn't have to do any of this," he said, his voice breaking. "Just seeing the people you've become, that's more than enough for me." Maya stepped forward, taking his hand. "Dad, you gave us a life we didn't think we'd ever have. You showed us what family means. This is our way of giving some of that back to you." The others nodded, their eyes shimmering with emotion. For a moment, no one spoke, but the silence wasn't empty. It was filled with love, understanding, and everything words couldn't express. Over the next few hours, David explored the RV, his excitement growing as he realized the adventures that awaited him. Inside, his children had placed little touches of their own: photos, handwritten notes, and even small gifts to remind him of home wherever he went. He couldn't stop smiling, even as tears occasionally escaped. "You all really thought of everything," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. By the end of the day, the family gathered around the dining table, sharing stories and laughter, just like they always had. The RV and the scholarship fund were incredible gestures, but what mattered most was the bond they shared. David looked at his children, all grown up, and felt a deep sense of peace. The years of struggle, the sleepless nights, and the sacrifices, they had all been worth it. As the evening turned into night, David stood outside, looking at the RV parked in the driveway. His heart swelled with gratitude, not just for the gifts, but for the life he had been able to build with his children. They had given him so much more than he ever expected, but the truth was, he had already felt like the luckiest man alive. This wasn't the end of their story, it was the start of a new chapter. And as David prepared for the adventures ahead, he knew one thing for sure: love, when given selflessly, always finds a way to come back tenfold.